Be up for retention?
For retention. And then again, your name appears on the ballot, and then the electorate would determine whether or not you should be retained. But also, you have to go through the bar associations. You have to submit yourself, again, to the bar associations to determine whether or not you're qualified to stay on.
Yeah, because some things could have happened during your tenure that just didn't go right, and they may say, no, I don't think you need to be retained.
Right.
Does someone else... That's not a vacancy at the same time. I mean, it's not.
No.
You don't have some other person trying to. You're just up for retention, and it's up to the public to decide whether or not they want to retain you or not.
Right. A vacancy usually occurs if someone retires or they pass away. Then that's how someone will get appointed by the Supreme Court if there's still some term left in the assignment. So that's how a vacancy sometimes will get filled. Is there might have been a year left or 6 months left or maybe 2 years left in the assignment. Then they'll fill someone in that spot, and then they'll sit there, and then they'll have to run after that term expires. But that's how the vacancies get filled. But on a retention, you're absolutely right. What happens is when you're up, then you're on the ballot just to be retained along with your colleagues who are also up at that time.
Now, you have to have a certain amount of votes to be retained?
You have to get a percentage. You have to get a percentage of the votes, and in order to stay on the bench. Yes.
If not, that becomes a vacancy.
Right.
And then maybe Judge Freeman or somebody would appoint somebody.
Right, yeah, one of the
and that's quite, would they be an associate judge?
No, they would be a full circuit
They would
judge.
be full circuit?
Yeah, because associates, actually it's kind of interesting because associates come up every 4 years.
Okay.
Full circuits every 6 years.
Okay. Well, we want to continue to educate people, and that's why I'm asking a lot of these questions, because if you were here in the audience and we don't have one, these are probably some of the same questions that you want to ask Judge Reyes, so you can get a better understanding. Now, we're focusing on March 2012, the 20th of 2012, and we talked about how you went to law school, you practiced law, and then you decided not to run. You went before, you presented your credentials, and you became an associate judge.
Right.
For over 13 years. And
Right.
then you decided to run for full circuit and were successful.
Right.
So now you want to go to the next level,
Right.
which is appellate. Explain to us the difference between the full circuit, what happens in Cook County and the appellate court. What kind of cases go to the appellate? What kind of work will you be doing once you get on the appellate court?
Sure. The appellate court is the court that reviews what happens at the trial level. So if you have a case at the trial level and you're not happy with the outcome, you can appeal that case. And at that time, you present written briefs, which the justices will review, and then determine whether or not they'll have oral arguments. If there are oral arguments at that time, then you get to argue the points that you feel. Yes.
Okay.
Then you get to argue the points that you felt that maybe the trial court missed or there was error on. Sometimes they could be evidentiary matters. They could be procedural matters. Sometimes you may feel that you didn't get an opportunity to present the particular type of evidence that you wanted because of a certain ruling, and that happens sometimes depending on what type of motions are presented. The court may feel that that's not an appropriate motion to bring at this time, and then you don't get to argue that motion. Well, then you could take that up on appeal, and then the appellate court will look at it and then make a determination whether or not the trial court was correct or not. It's an important assignment because in many cases, particularly here in Illinois, the appellate court is the safety net, the last stop in terms of your litigation, because very few cases go up to the Supreme Court, the Illinois Supreme Court. The Illinois Supreme Court determines what cases they take, and on an average, I would say about maybe 80 to 85% of the cases that are resolved in Cook County are resolved at the appellate court. Very few cases go up to the Supreme Court.
So you overturn
the trial court.
So
you either overturn them or you affirm them.
Affirm it. So if you overturn something, they don't have to go back to court to replead the case, do they?
Well, they might, because what happens is sometimes the appellate court may say, The court made a procedural mistake, and so what the trial court has to do now, and then the appellate court may lay out what needs to be done. So it's called the remand. So they'll remand it back to the trial court.
Right.
And at that point in time, the trial court will look at the opinion and say, okay, I understand what needs to be done, and then they will follow the appellate court's decision. Sometimes the court will just outright reverse the trial court, and by that what they mean is that okay, there was error made, and so they're gonna send it back because they're reversing the decision.
Now, the likelihood of going back to the same judge, is it?
Sometimes it goes back to the same judge, sometimes it doesn't. In Cook County, we have what's known as the rotation system.
Right.
So it doesn't necessarily always go back to the same judge.
Right.
And then if sometimes what will happen is the appellate court will affirm the judge, saying the judge was correct in her or his ruling, and then the case is disposed of that way.
So I even understand the importance of going to law school and actually practicing law, and then when you get on a bench, making sure that the procedures are taken. I mean, judges aren't God,
right,
and they make errors too.
Right.
So, I mean, they may be unfamiliar with a particular procedure or a particular way it could have been done. So it's not to be looked upon as something is overturned or the appellate court makes a different decision, that it's a reflection of the incompetency of the judge that was presiding over that particular case. Is that not true?
Right. And I mean, to kind of use it like a sports analogy, it's sort of like, you're a referee at a game, and at that moment you make the decision and you think it's the best decision at the time.
Right.
But then when you got the review, and that's what the appellate court is basically, they get to look at it in slow motion and say, maybe this should have been done, or maybe that should have been done. So that's what the appellate court does. And the reason why, I find the appellate court work so fascinating is because being a student of the law, being someone who loves to write and to read, I mean, that's what appellate court justices do. They read the trial record, they examine all the documents that have been presented at the trial level, and then they'll make a decision based on the record and on the arguments, and then write an opinion.
Now, you do that with a team of people.
Right. Yeah. There's 3 justices that preside over a hearing at the appellate court, and if there's 2 that decide one way and then one decides the other way, the 2 are considered the majority, and then the one will be considered the dissent.
Okay.
Sometimes, and in many cases there's a unanimous. That means all 3. So sometimes it happens where one of the justices will say, no, I disagree, and then that justice will write a dissent. And then the other 2 will write the majority opinion.
Right. Well, you must really be serious about this, because going to the next level is going to require a little bit more work. But with the passion and love that you have for the law, it's not going to be. You're going to be working smart, not hard, and you're going to enjoy reading those transcripts and taking your notes and talking to the other 2 justices about the particular case to come up with a determination on it. So
right, and that's the one thing about the appellate court also, is that there has to be a level of congeniality, because you have to get along with your colleagues. You have to discuss the cases and then the opinion. So I'm looking forward to that. I think I'm really going to enjoy that.